Hi everyone, it's Laura Binding. So today we're going to be learning how to make this wire wrapped cabochon necklace. Now this is a great big huge piece of druzy and we are going to be learning how to catch it in this lovely setting, decorate it with a bit of wire work and set it into a lovely necklace. Okay, so what are we going to need to do this project? So it's all about this druzy. This druzy is absolutely stunning. We then have some hematite squares. These are really sweet for your accent beads and they're great for your weaving. You have your hematite round beads here. These are your 12mm size. And then of course we have the important thing, the wire. So I have a 0.8 gauge in a warm champagne gold coloured silver plated, and I have a 0.4 in the same. Okay, the tools that I'm going to be using for this project, super simple, nothing complicated. Flush cutters, chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, but these are quite essential for the project, and these are my bail making pliers. Now these are the larger ones that we do in the set. They are, I believe, an 8mm and a 6mm diameter. Now if you don't have these, if you just have a pencil or a pen, as long as it's round and it's solid so it's not going to crumple when you wrap the wire around it, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so it's all about this druzy, and we want to set this druzy in the way that really showcases this gemstone. It's absolutely stunning, and I didn't want to go over and detract from that detail in any way. As you can see on this gemstone here, I mean, if you have a look, it's got different heights, it's got different ridges. It's just absolutely stunning. Even the back of it's amazing. So I wanted to find a way that I could catch this without actually intruding too much on the gemstone itself and tying in with that kind of link to nature. So I'm going to go back to the main piece now and just show you what I've done is almost created little leaves as prongs to come up and catch that gemstone. Now because it is a beautiful rough druzy texture, it's really going to hold that wire nicely, so it's going to grip really easily. Now these are two different shapes, and I chose to show you the design with the oval rather than the teardrop because it's actually going to be a little bit more to sort of deal with, and I thought it would be better to show you that so that if you get a sort of a non-traditional teardrop shape, you're not afraid of how to actually approach that design. Okay, so I've got 3 lengths of my 0.8 gauge wire here. Now, with regards to how much wire you're going to need, it really does depend on the size of your gemstone. What you need is enough to be able to go around the whole of the gemstone, and then probably I'd like to have about, I'd like to say 6 inches or so on both sides. Now I'm going to cut 2 that length, and then I'm going to cut 1 that's going to be about, again, about 5 inches longer than the other 2, and that is the wire that we're going to use to create the prongs to set around the gemstone. So obviously it's going to reduce the length, so we need to factor that in at the initial stage. So I've taken a longer wire and I've taken my bail making pliers. Now I've chosen a slightly smaller size, about a 6mm size, and what I'm going to do is come probably about my sort of 6 inches from the end, and I'm just going to place my pliers in. I'm then going to take my wire all the way around, open my pliers and reposition, so that I get that loop shape. Remove those so that I get that loop shape there. So before I do the next one, I'm going to go ahead and shape this into that leaf shape. So I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and I'm going to come just towards the side at the top and just gently just twist my hand. So I'm pinching those pliers down and turning my hand to get that angle. I'm then going to turn the wire around and do the opposite side. So again, just twisting that, pinching that, so you start to get that shape. If you close your pliers, pop them into the loop and then open them, you can gently push out that shape. There you have one of your prongs. So I'm going to repeat this all the way along this piece of wire until I have enough of these prongs to go around the gemstone. So you're going to keep on going until you have a whole length of them, and I'm going to get my gemstone, and what I'm going to do is place this all the way around so I can see if they meet, and they meet. Okay, so the next stage that we want to do is actually start to weave these together. So to do that, I'm going to start off with my prong section of the wires, and I'm going to take a length of 0.4, just as long as you can sort of work with, and I will show you how we can add in. And what I'm going to do is just take that probably a couple of centimeters from that first prong, and I'm going to wrap 3 times just to secure that wire. I'm then going to take my next wire, place it underneath, and I'm going to wrap around both those wires once, around them both again. But what I'm going to do now is come up into the middle towards me again. Okay, it's at this point that I can actually go ahead and trim this tail, because I don't need that now. I'm then going to take that third and final wire, place that at the bottom, and then I'm going to wrap the bottom and middle wire together the same way as we did a moment ago. So around both those wires once, around them both, but up and in between the middle. So what I'm doing is I'm going to be wrapping the top 2 and then the bottom 2, top 2, bottom 2, top 2, bottom 2, and I'm going to be going around both of those wires once, and then around back into the middle of the 2 that we have just wrapped. You're going to do this up until your first prong, and then you just skip over to the other side of the loop or the prong and continue with that pattern. Okay, so I've gotten to a point now where I need to add more wire. When you're working with this, obviously you are working with long lengths of wire, as you can see here. So I am having that as a slight obstacle already. So what I don't want to do is to struggle with a short piece of wire. So I've gotten to a point where I'm at an actual sort of a prong section just here. So I'm going to just do that rotation. So I'm going to go around once. So instead of bringing that wire back down, I've just wrapped it around that top wire sort of twice, and that will blend into the loop section here anyway. So to add your next piece in, I've just taken a new piece of 0.4, wrapped it around the other side of the prong, placing that across there. Leave a little tail until it's become established, and then just pick that weave back up. Okay, so you can see that I've gone ahead and I've got that whole section woven now. So the whole idea is that the wires here, the 2 wires that aren't looped, are going to sit at the back of the gemstone and be the support there. So I just want to kind of come in now and almost fold those leaves, those sort of prongs, so they're sitting as an edge. So you can see they're sort of sitting up a bit now. The next thing, and it's a big decision, is which way are we going to set this gemstone. So again, you can have it set as an oval drop, or you can have it set horizontally. It really is up to you. There's no wrong or right. I think I'm just going to go ahead and set it traditionally. So I'm going to place my bezel around the gemstone, bring it all nice and tight. So this is what I was talking about with a teardrop. You can see how those points naturally, you can see how those wires go to a natural point. So if you're doing it with a rounded gemstone, it really doesn't matter. You just have to take a bit more time to really make sure you've got that wire around that gemstone. It's holding it nice and tight. So I'm really holding that securely in my hand. And what I'm going to do is take my pliers and just fold all of those wires up at the top of the gemstone. I'm then going to take one of the wires, it doesn't matter which one, but just preferably a shorter one. Now you will see here, this is my 0.4. I'm keeping that on for a reason. I'm going to take one of my outside wires of my 0.8, and I'm actually going to wrap nice and tight around all of those wires. That's locked them into place for me. That's kept that nice and stable. So now your gemstone has a bezel setting. So these gemstones are a little bit irregular just because of the fact that they are obviously a natural gemstone. So take that time to really mould that setting and make sure there's no way that gemstone can escape. but you can see it's sitting nicely there. It's been held nicely, but obviously these prongs need to just be sort of pushed over the edge of the cabochon to set it into place. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, when you do something like this, you tend to need to go in opposite directions. So you start from this point, then this point, this, and so on. And it's always an opposite, because obviously every move that you make will have an effect. So I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to kind of gently curve that prong around, turn the piece over, go to an opposite corner and curve that prong down. Now I also like to close my pliers and gently push to get that wire going over as well without damaging the wire work that you've done, because the last thing you want to do is to have done all of this work and then damage it by slipping with your pliers. Believe me, I've done that. It's very sad. Now this gemstone has got a few different peaks of sort of geode almost on it, so we're just going to have to work around that. Just take your time and really mould those bezels around. So you can see it's starting to take form already, because what we don't want are any little prongs sticking up, because they will then obviously catch. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've set that. It does still need a little bit of tweaking, but we'll finish that all off at the end. For now, the gemstone has been set. It's held nicely, because I need to make sure that I don't need to go into the back and tweak any of that. And obviously, as soon as I start to work with these, it could affect this section here. But for now, this stone is nicely set. It's not going to go anywhere. So I'm going to get rid of the wire that I used to wrap around all those wires. I don't need that wire. We already have 6 wires to deal with, so by removing that, that only gives us 5. So I'm going to open these wires out now, so we can start to decide what we actually want to do. So at this point, I mean, you could just do a woven bow and have a beautiful cabochon set pendant, but I wanted to take it up a tiny little bit of a level by doing this additional detailing just here. So if I just show you, you'll be able to see. So I've actually used a little hematite squares for a little bit of decoration here, and then the larger hematite gemstones just here. Now this whole section is all done on the same wires that we've used for the base of this gemstone here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use these longer wires for the next stage of decoration. So what I'm going to do is switch it, so I've got that shorter wire just there for the centre, and then I'm going to use these longer wires just here for the woven sort of swirl decoration. Still got my 0.4 wire attached. Now if you haven't got enough, then just cut it and add some more in. Okay, so I've got some small hematite cubes here, and they fit on the 0.8 wire lovely. So what I've done is I've wrapped both these wires 3 times, and now I'm going to add one of the hematite onto the lower wire, bring my 0.4 wire across the back and wrap 3 times around that bottom wire. I'm then going to wrap both those wires 3 times, 1, 2 and 3, scoot that up, add a gemstone, bring that wire up across the back of the gemstone and wrap that bottom wire 3 times. So it's just a way to keep these wires together and add some gemstones as a decorative feature. So adding that gemstone on now. Bring that wire across, so scoot that gemstone up, bring it across the back, 1, 2, 3. You have a really cool little effect there. So I'm just going to do a little section of this. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've just woven those on. Now there are 9 on this particular section. It may vary. And what I'm going to do is just bring it around into a little bit of a spiral very gently, and you can do this, it will work. Just keep those wires nice and flat, so you can see they've just rotated around like that. Okay, so I've still got my wire here in the center. That wire I'm going to add a gemstone on into a moment. What I'm also going to do is just just one of these other wires and just bring that up as well, just to add a little bit more detail. And I'm just going to bring that and hook it behind that center wire just there. Then when I place my larger hematite stone on, it just stays in place. I'm then going to continue with that same wire, bring that up and just frame the outside of that stone so you can see. Then I'm going to use this edging just here to frame the other side in a slightly more decorative way. Okay, you may need to add one more gemstone if you feel you need to, and just bring both those wires around that center wire there. And we're looking at this. So with this wire here, again, I mean, you're welcome to sort of have a little play, see if you want to add it. I might actually add it just in there for a bit more detail. I didn't on the other one, I didn't feel it was needed, but actually I quite like it on this one. So don't be afraid to place a wire and see what it looks like. Okay, so I've just gone ahead and opened out these wires so that I can see which ones I want to use and which ones I don't need. So I've got 5, and I don't need to have 5, I need 2 on each side. So what I'm going to do is take this wire just here, because if you look, it's the lowest, and I'm just going to snip that and tuck that edge in so it's nice and tucked into that wire work. Okay, so that's given me 4 wires, so now I need to decide what I'm going to do with those wires. So I'm going to use 2 of my hematite rounds, and I'm also going to use some of the squares, again just as spacers. So I'm going to go ahead and use the longer wires to add my gemstone onto. Now I'm just going to go straight on and use the longer wire and place it straight down. Now I actually ended up moving that one just because I wanted this to sit next to the main one here, but what I'm going to go ahead and do is take that wire and wrap around, okay, and I'm going to repeat on the opposite side. Okay, so what I did on this side was I just took this wire here and went around. I'm going to show you now, over, hold it all nice and steady and bring that all the way across. Before you fold that over, just gently trim that quite short, about 1 centimetre, and just tuck that edge into your wire work. Then you've got your excess wire just here, pop on a little spacer and a hematite, a little spacer, and then just one more of the round hematites, okay, so that you have a total of 3. I'm then going to take my round nose pliers, place them nice and close to that final gemstone, fold that wire over, reposition my pliers, bring them all the way around, rotate my pliers again, and then just keeping it nice and steady, bring that wire around to wrap and finish. Take your pliers out and then just snip that wire, take your chain nose pliers and just gently flatten that, and that's your finished piece. You could of course add a final space bead there if you want to, that's optional, and then just quickly repeat on the opposite side. And there you have your main section, and it's at this point that you can come back across now and really tweak this section here and make sure it fits exactly as you want it to fit. And then you can just add some jump rings and some chain, or you can do a couple of extra rosary links as I've done just here in between adding the chain. It's up to you, but that is your main component on how you would make your necklace. I hope you enjoyed this project and I look forward to seeing your results.